There comes a time in every entrepreneur's life when they need to decide if they're going to create a real business, leave the whole 4-hour work week scene behind, and build something enduring, something sustainable, something with widespread impact. And while we may never have the breadth of what Steve Jobs has done, or Richard Branson, or Warren Buffett, we certainly can get in that direction and use some of the same brilliant ideas that they have used again and again and again. And we may just surprise ourselves of the kind of business that we can build. When we take a look at the stories of each of these incredible entrepreneurs, including the Richard Kochs of the world and the Elon Musks of the world, we see again and again and again that over and over, they've been masters of executing the 80-20 rule. When an entrepreneur wants to cross that chasm, no longer can they rely on sales and marketing. That's what gets a lot of entrepreneurs up to this glass ceiling. When they decide to take that leap and create a real business, now they have to think a ton about management, leadership, and operations. That's exactly the chasm that I helped cross through the private consulting that I do and the courses that we offer through Profit Factory. We help entrepreneurs make the leap. And when they've got a trusted guide to help them along the way, it's nowhere near as risky as they may originally think. Some of the clients I've worked with just earlier this year, we helped a client in Canada find an extra $472,000 of net income. Now, note what I said there. I didn't say $472,000 of sales. I said $472,000 of net income, which is bottom line profit that they got to keep inside of the company. I'm incredibly grateful that they trusted me with their business, and together we helped make that happen. Just last year, I worked with the Ryan Levesque group, and working with his team, we were able to set up a ton of the behind the scenes operations and system. In fact, Ryan now says that our work together helped set his company up to go from 7 to 8 figures, which was a great success. In the next few minutes, let's get deeper into the 80-20 rule. I'm sure you read about it in the 4-hour work week just like I did. Maybe like me, you also felt a little bit confused as to how do we actually use the 80-20 rule on a daily basis. Maybe you were wondering, what exactly is it that I do in my day-to-day life that is 80-20 and what isn't? And maybe you've also felt like, hey, it's a great idea, but I can never get away from my business long enough to actually think 80-20 or take actions on big 80-20 ideas. If you have any of those feelings, you and I are on the exact same page. I've just been lucky to get to the other side though and get a lot of progress with 80-20. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you some of my big insights into how to bring 80-20 into your everyday business. In this video, we're going to cover beginner, medium, and advanced of 80-20. We'll just very quickly touch on the beginning because I'm sure you've already got a basic knowledge of 80-20. In case you happen to share this video with another entrepreneur, they'll get a basic understanding as well. Then we'll move into intermediate and advanced. Growing up, we were taught to think 50-50. Everything on our to-do list has to get done. It all carries the same value, even though we know that's not true. All the courses that we studied in school, we had to get the same marks because they all contributed equally to our end result. Well, that's not true in the real world either. In fact, in the real world, getting good at a few things allows us to make more and more money in our businesses and in our careers. Thus, the 80-20 curve. And so of the 100% of factors, we have 80% that only produce a very small 20% result. And then there's 20% that produces the 80% of results. Now, something to know about the 80-20 rule is it's what's called fractal. Now, that's kind of a geeky science math term, but basically what that means is inside of every 80-20, there's an even smaller 80-20 and an even smaller 80-20. If we look at all the countries in the world, 20% have 80% of the wealth. If we take just one of those top 20% countries, the United States, for example, and we look at the entire population and we zoom in, we would see that the top 10% of the population holds most of the money. And if we zoom even further into that top 10%, we'll see that even within there, there's like the Forbes 500 list, which is an even harsher 80-20. And then there's the Forbes 100, and it doesn't matter whether we zoom in or zoom out, 80-20 is there again and again and again. Now, as entrepreneurs, we have to make a few decisions along the way. When we take a look at 80-20, if we're talking about products or customers or opportunities, oftentimes abandoning the bottom 20% can make sense, as long as we're doing it responsibly and we're doing it gracefully and respectfully when we decide to walk away from opportunities. When it comes to management, leadership, and operations though, this is almost kind of like a slippery slope. If you don't have the bottom 20% taken care either by automated computers or by delegated team members, then you slide back down. You could be up here in your business, clicking along, feeling really, really good, but if one of your team members who takes care of billing suddenly quits and nobody knows how to do billing, you have to find a way to solve that. And it doesn't matter how much time you could spend up here. If you're not getting paid, you've got a major problem. So it's very much about building your way up to the 80-20 curve when we're talking about management, leadership, and operations. Obviously, that's not true 100% of the time. Sometimes it does just make sense to abandon. But this is a big difference. Oftentimes entrepreneurs think, oh, well, let's just ditch that. Let's move on to the next thing. When in fact, it's building this capacity at the bottom that pushes us up the 80-20 curve. And so at the end of the day, and I can thank Perry Marshall for coining this term, it's about climbing the 80-20 curve. When we think of the godfather of 80-20 himself, Mr. Richard Koch, if we look at his career from beginning to where he is today with a net worth of over $350 million, we see a man who simply diligently applied climbing the 80-20 curve again and again and again for decades. Now here's a nifty diagram you've probably never seen before. In fact, it's one 80-20 curve, another 80-20 curve, a third and a fourth, all drawn next to each other. When we turn this sideways, we see it actually creates an hourglass. And I can thank my friend and fellow entrepreneur, Mr. Mike Rhodes in Australia, for teaching me the hourglass idea. The way that hourglass works is simply that in any project, any task, any business, there's the first 10%, there's the middle 80%, and there's the bottom 10% of any task. When we start taking a look at any project or task, we see the first 10% is actually leading the work, the middle 80% is doing the work, and the bottom 10% is reviewing the work. In the beginning of our businesses, we had to do 100% of everything, including a lot of the doing. As we continue to grow our company though, and we want to build that capacity underneath us to push us up the 80-20 curve, we need to get better and better at moving into the first 10% of any project where we are leading the project. And then take contractors, agencies, or team members to do the middle 80%, and then we just give feedback along the way. When I talk to entrepreneurs, I can usually tell where they are in Hourglass simply based on the tools, tasks, and questions that they spend most of their day taking care of. And so if I talk to somebody and they say, yeah, I'm in Adobe Photoshop all day, I'm creating a logo, and I'm really trying to figure out how can I get this color to match the right palette. That's definitely a doing task. Same thing if you're in Facebook, Power Editor all day, and your task is writing new headlines, and the questions you're asking are what 20% of ad groups or campaigns or audiences are generating 80% of our clicks. Now on the flip side, if I talk to an entrepreneur and they say, I'm using 360 Delegation and I'm trying to delegate management of this project to someone, and I'm trying to figure out what the proper definition of done is so that I can be clear about what I need done. Okay, there's a good chance you've never even heard of 360 Delegation. It's a delegation tool. I actually invented it. It's something that Profit Factory teaches all of our clients to use. And if you've never heard of words like definition of done, again, that's probably because you haven't spent a bunch of time doing any kind of structured, proper leading of teams. Now, maybe you are leading people and maybe your business is in the millions of dollars and you've been really successful. And so imagine if you had the proper professional tools to be able to go to work. It's kind of like instead of sending emails one at a time to customers, it's like having Infusionsoft or Aweber or any of the mass auto email responders. Imagine having that kind of a tool except for managing and leading. And that's what 360 Delegation and these kinds of tools are all about. So at the end of the day, maybe you've got expert level knowledge at marketing and sales. maybe also at product development, whatever your product or service is. There's a whole other world to learn though, if you're committing yourself to creating a real business. And there are different tools, different tasks, and different questions for you to learn how to use. Being able to see 80-20 opportunities in your business is crucial for you to be able to take advantage of them. Now, you might still be feeling, hey Tim, this is great, and this definitely helps me feel more inspired to think 80-20 more often, but in my business, I still can't see the exact specific tasks that I should be handing off to other team members. I'm so happy you're asking that question. In the next video, I'm gonna share with you a really clever tool that I invented called the Magic Matrix. By following the Magic Matrix, you're gonna see hotspots inside your business of exactly where you can move next towards getting tasks off your plate, so it frees you up to focus on that top 20% and even the top 20% of the top 20% to begin getting tons of leverage, freedom, and acceleration inside of your business. I know in my own business, as I've used the Magic Matrix, I've discovered there's some things that I've been able to get off my plate which have been incredibly inspiring. In fact, it exceeded my own expectation. For me, I am astounded that today I spend almost zero time in my Infusionsoft account whatsoever. And I'm also astounded that my assistant Sarah handles about 97% of my email inbox. I can now go away, which I have done on multiple occasions now, for 10 days, leave my phone on airplane mode or completely off, basically the entire time, and come home to a business that's still running properly and without any welcome home avalanche of 500 emails. And let me tell you, now that I'm on this side of it, it is just as awesome as you could have ever imagined. I'll share with you the Magic Matrix in the next video that'll give you hotspots of where you can find the same opportunities for yourself. If there's anything that you've delegated in your company that you've found to be quite the achievement for yourself, I would love to hear about it. Leave it in the comments below. That way, anybody who watches this video after you can now see inspiring ideas of what they could get off their plate too, and ultimately help them climb the 80-20 curve as well. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tim Francis from Profit Factory, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.